The call came at 11:42 p.m. Miles Harper's hand trembled as he stared at the unknown number lighting up his screen. 24 hours earlier, he'd been kneeling on cold asphalt, changing a flat tire for a stranger while his 8-year-old daughter huddled in their beat-up sedan. 24 hours earlier, he'd been mocked, humiliated, and dismissed. Now this call would change everything, not just for him, but for Lily too. If you've ever wondered whether small acts of kindness truly matter in this world, I hope you'll stay with me until the end of this story. And if it touches your heart, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more stories that remind us of the unexpected ways our lives can transform. Miles Harper hadn't planned on becoming a single father at 32. He certainly hadn't expected to lose his wife, Sarah, to a sudden aneurysm when their daughter Lily was only 4. The past 4 years had been a blur of grief, responsibility, and the constant struggle to keep their lives from falling apart. Some days, he barely recognized himself in the mirror, the dark circles under his eyes, the worry lines etching themselves deeper with each passing month, the shoulders perpetually hunched from carrying the weight of 2 roles. Before Sarah's death, Miles had been a high school English teacher with dreams of writing a novel someday. Now, he juggled part-time teaching with evening shifts at a local hardware store, all while trying to give Lily the stability and love she deserved. Their small 2-bedroom apartment wasn't much, but he'd turned it into a home, filled with books and Lily's artwork taped to every available surface. That particular Tuesday had started like any other. The ancient alarm clock buzzed at 5:30 a.m., and Miles dragged himself out of bed to prepare Lily's lunch, peanut butter and banana sandwich, cut diagonally the way she liked it, with a handful of baby carrots and a juice box. He signed her homework folder, made sure her library books were in her backpack, and gently woke her at 6:15. "Rise and shine, Lily Bug," he whispered, smoothing her unruly blonde curls that were so like her mother's. "5 more minutes, Dad," she mumbled, burrowing deeper under her unicorn-covered comforter. "Not today, sweetheart. Remember, we have to leave early for your dentist appointment." Lily groaned dramatically but sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Will I get a sticker?" "Definitely. Maybe even 2 if you're extra brave." The dentist appointment went smoothly, no cavities, which was a relief given their bare-bones insurance coverage. Miles dropped Lily at school afterward, watching as she ran to join her friends, her backpack bouncing with each step. The sight always gave him a mixture of pride and melancholy. She was growing up so fast, and Sarah was missing it all. His own day unfolded with the usual challenges. The check engine light in his car had been blinking ominously for weeks. The refrigerator made concerning noises whenever it cycled on. And now his department head wanted him to take on additional classes next semester without any increase in pay. Miles had politely declined, knowing he couldn't stretch himself any thinner without something breaking, most likely himself. By the time he picked Lily up from her after-school program at 4:30, exhaustion had settled into his bones. They still had to stop at the grocery store for essentials: milk, bread, fruit, and ingredients for spaghetti, Lily's favorite dinner and the only meal Miles could consistently make well. "Dad, can we get ice cream?" Lily asked, skipping alongside him down the dairy aisle. Miles checked his wallet, mentally calculating the remaining budget until payday. "Not tonight, Lily Bug. Maybe next week." Her small face fell, but she nodded with a maturity that sometimes broke his heart. At 8, she already understood financial limitations better than most adults. Sarah would have hated that. "How about we make cookies instead?" he offered. "We have flour and chocolate chips at home." Her smile returned, brilliant and immediate. "With extra chips? Is there any other way?" They were loading their modest groceries into the car when Miles noticed a woman in the parking lot staring helplessly at her flat tire. She was well-dressed in a tailored business suit, her sleek car a stark contrast to Miles' weathered sedan. She paced back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, frustration evident in every movement. Miles hesitated. It was already getting late. He still needed to make dinner, help Lily with her homework, and prepare for his morning classes. But something in the woman's desperate expression tugged at him. "Lily, I think we need to help someone," he said, securing the last grocery bag. Lily followed his gaze. "The lady with the fancy car?" "Yep. She has a flat tire. Should we see if we can help?" Lily considered this seriously before nodding. "Mom would want us to." That simple statement was all Miles needed. Sarah had been unfailingly kind, always stopping to help others regardless of inconvenience. It was one of countless things he had loved about her. He approached the woman cautiously, aware that his worn jeans and faded t-shirt might not inspire confidence. "Excuse me, ma'am. I noticed you have a flat. I'd be happy to change it for you if you have a spare." The woman lowered her phone, revealing an exquisitely made-up face currently creased with annoyance. She gave Miles a quick once-over, her gaze lingering on his scuffed work boots. "I've already called my roadside assistants," she said dismissively. "They should be here any minute." "Of course," Miles replied with an understanding nod. "It's just that these services can take a while, especially during rush hour. I could have you back on the road in 15 minutes. She hesitated, glancing at her watch, an elegant timepiece that probably cost more than Miles made in a month. "Fine," she finally said. "The trunk should be unlocked." Miles went to retrieve his own jack from his car, as luxury vehicles often had flimsy equipment. Lily trailed after him, clutching her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy. "Can I help, Dad?" she asked. "You can be my official light holder," he said, handing her the small flashlight he kept in the glove compartment. "It's getting dark, and I'll need to see what I'm doing." They returned to the woman's car, where she was now engaged in what sounded like a heated business call. She barely acknowledged them as Miles located the spare and began setting up the jack. As he worked, loosening lug nuts and positioning the jack properly, he became aware of voices nearby. A group of well-dressed men had emerged from the grocery store and paused to observe the scene. "Look at that," one of them said, not bothering to lower his voice. "Guess some people still can't afford roadside assistance." "Or a decent car," another added with a chuckle. "Did you see the beater he drove up in? Probably hoping she'll tip him." Miles kept his head down, focusing on the task at hand. Lily, however, stood a little straighter, her small face indignant. He gave her a small shake of his head, "Don't engage." The woman, finishing her call, overheard the comments and, to Miles' dismay, smiled thinly at the men. "Some people are just so helpful, aren't they?" she said, her tone making it clear she found the situation amusing rather than worthy of gratitude. The men laughed, and one called out, "Maybe he's hoping to get your number." More laughter followed, and Miles felt heat rise in his cheeks. He wasn't doing this for praise or reward, but the mockery stung, especially in front of Lily. His daughter's eyes had gone wide, her small hand gripping the flashlight tightly. He gave her what he hoped was a reassuring smile. "Almost done, Lily Bug," he said softly. "You're doing a great job with that light." The woman checked her watch again, sighing impatiently. "Is this going to take much longer? I have an important dinner reservation." "Just securing the last lug nut," Miles replied evenly, tightening it with the wrench. "There, you're all set." He lowered the car and began returning the tools to his own vehicle. The woman clicked over to her car on high heels, barely glancing at the newly changed tire. "Thanks," she said absently, already opening her car door. She paused, reaching into her purse and extracting a $5 bill. "For your trouble." Miles felt the blood drain from his face. He'd stopped to help as one human being to another, not as a service provider expecting payment. Before he could respond, Lily stepped forward. "My dad doesn't need your money," she said, her young voice clear and proud. "He helps people because it's the right thing to do." The woman blinked, seemingly noticing Lily for the first time. Her expression softened slightly, but then hardened again as the men's laughter drifted over. "Well, thank you both," she said stiffly, returning the money to her purse. She got into her car without another word, started the engine, and drove away. Miles stood there for a moment, a complex mix of emotions washing through him. Pride in Lily's courage and dignity. Hurt at being treated with such condescension. Weariness at yet another reminder of how the world often worked. "Let's go home, Dad," Lily said, slipping her small hand into his. "I'm hungry." "Me too, Lilybug," he replied, squeezing her hand gently. "You were amazing just now." She looked up at him with Sarah's eyes. "They were mean." "You're not supposed to be mean to people who help you. That's what you and Mom always said." "That's exactly right." He helped her into the car, making sure her seatbelt was secure. "And you know what? We're still going to help people when they need it. Because that's who we are." The drive home was quiet, with Lily dozing against the window. Miles couldn't stop replaying the scene in his mind, the mocking laughter, the woman's dismissive attitude, the $5 bill held out like an afterthought. He'd faced worse in the 4 years since becoming a single parent, but something about this particular humiliation cut deep. At home, they fell into their usual evening routine. Spaghetti for dinner, homework at the kitchen table, then cookies as promised, with extra chocolate chips. By the time Miles tucked Lily into bed, reading her 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web before her eyes grew heavy, he'd mostly pushed the parking lot incident from his mind. "Dad?" Lily murmured sleepily as he turned out her light. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm proud of you. Mom would be proud too." His throat tightened unexpectedly. "Thank you, Lilybug. That means everything to me." He closed her door partway, leaving it open just enough for the hallway light to peek through, a compromise they'd reached after Sarah died and Lily became afraid of the dark. Then he settled at the small desk in his bedroom, grading papers until his eyes burned. The next day passed in a blur of responsibilities. Morning classes, a hurried lunch, office hours where he met with struggling students, then his shift at the hardware store from 3 until 9. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door watched Lily after school, a kindness for which Miles was eternally grateful. By the time he picked up his daughter, he was operating on autopilot, exhaustion seeping into every cell. "Did you finish your homework?" he asked as they climbed the stairs to their third-floor apartment. Lily yawned. "Mrs. Rodriguez helped me with my multiplication. And I read 20 minutes like I'm supposed to. That's my girl." After a quick bedtime routine, Miles collapsed onto the couch, rubbing his temples where a headache was forming. The stack of ungraded essays mocked him from the coffee table, but he couldn't summon the energy to tackle them. Just 5 minutes of rest, he told himself, closing his eyes. He must have dozed off because the next thing he knew, his phone was vibrating in his pocket. Miles blinked groggily, disoriented. The clock on the wall read 11:42 p.m. Who would be calling this late? The number wasn't one he recognized. Spam calls rarely came this late, and a spike of anxiety shot through him. Was it the school? Had something happened? "Hello?" he answered, voice rough with sleep. "Is this Miles Harper?" A woman's voice, vaguely familiar. "Yes, this is he. You probably don't remember me, but you changed my tire yesterday at the Westfield grocery store." Miles sat up straighter, fully awake now. "I remember." There was a pause, then a deep breath. "I owe you an apology. A significant one." "That's not necessary." "It is," she interrupted. "My name is Catherine Winters. I behaved abominably yesterday, and your daughter called me out on it, as she should have." Miles found himself at a loss for words. Of all the things he might have expected from this call, an apology wasn't one of them. "After I drove away," Catherine continued, "I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. About how those men mocked you, and how instead of defending someone who was helping me, I participated in their cruelty. And about your daughter's face when she stood up for you. Miles swallowed hard. Lily has a strong sense of right and wrong. She gets that from her father, clearly. Another pause. Mr. Harper, the reason I'm calling so late, and I apologize for that too, is that I spent all day trying to track down your contact information. I'm the CEO of Winters Media Group, and I'd like to make amends, if you'll allow me. The name registered dimly. Winters Media Group was a large publishing conglomerate with offices throughout the Northeast. Miles had submitted short stories to some of their literary magazines over the years, always receiving form rejections. Make amends, he repeated cautiously. Yes. I understand you're an English teacher, and that you're raising your daughter alone. How do you know that? She hesitated. I may have done some research. Your license plate led me to your name, and from there. I hope that doesn't seem intrusive. My point is, we have an opening in our educational publishing division for a senior editor. The position would come with a substantial salary increase from teaching, full benefits, and, most importantly, regular hours that would be more compatible with being a single parent. Miles felt like the floor had dropped away beneath him. Ms. Winters, I don't understand. You want to offer me a job because I changed your tire? No, she said firmly. I want to offer you an interview because when I looked into your background, I discovered you graduated summa cum laude from Boston University with a double major in English literature and education. You've published several well-received academic articles on teaching methodologies, and before personal tragedy struck, you were on track for a promising career in either academia or publishing. The mention of personal tragedy sent a cold wave through Miles. She knew about Sarah. The tire incident was simply what brought you to my attention, Catherine continued. Your qualifications are what interest me professionally. And... She paused, her voice softening slightly, the way you handled yourself yesterday, with dignity in the face of mockery, and the way you're raising your daughter to stand up for what's right, those things tell me you're the kind of person my company needs. Miles ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what was happening. This is unexpected. I understand. And I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'd like you to come to our offices for a proper interview on Friday, if you're available. We can discuss the position in detail, and you can decide if it's something you're interested in. Friday. Miles mentally reviewed his schedule. He'd need to find someone to cover his hardware store shift. I could make that work. Excellent. I'll have my assistant email you the details in the morning. She paused again. And Mr. Harper? I truly am sorry about yesterday. There's no excuse for how I behaved. After the call ended, Miles sat in the darkened living room, staring at his phone. The events of the past 24 hours felt surreal. From being mocked in a grocery store parking lot to receiving a job offer from a publishing executive, it was the kind of reversal that happened in movies, not real life. He tiptoed to Lily's room, watching her sleep for a moment. Her blonde curls spread across the pillow, Mr. Hoppy clutched tightly in one arm. Would this opportunity be the break they'd been waiting for? A chance to provide her with more stability, more opportunities, maybe even a home with a yard where she could play? Miles knew better than to count on promises before they materialized, but for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar unfurling in his chest, hope. Friday arrived with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Miles had splurged on a haircut the previous evening and wore his only suit, the one he'd purchased for Sarah's funeral and hadn't worn since. It felt both too tight and too loose, a metaphor for how uncomfortable he was in this situation. Mrs. Rodriguez had agreed to pick up Lily from school, assuring Miles he should take all the time he needed. This could be big for you, mi hijo, she'd said, patting his cheek. Sarah would want you to go for it. The Winters Media Group headquarters occupied a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Boston. Miles felt distinctly out of place as he rode the elevator to the 28th floor, surrounded by confident professionals in designer clothing. He checked his reflection in the mirrored walls, straightening his tie and trying to quell the butterflies in his stomach. Catherine Winters greeted him personally, rising from behind an imposing desk as her assistant showed him into a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. "Mr. Harper, thank you for coming," she said, extending her hand. Today she wore a dark blue dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent, but her demeanor was notably different from their first encounter, warmer, more genuine. "Thank you for the invitation," Miles replied, shaking her hand firmly. "And please, call me Miles." "Miles, then." "And I'm Catherine." The interview that followed was the most thorough of Miles' life. Catherine asked incisive questions about his educational philosophy, his approach to literature, his thoughts on digital versus print learning materials. They discussed current trends in educational publishing, the challenges of creating content that engaged modern students while maintaining academic rigor, and the importance of diverse voices in educational materials. Miles found himself engaged in a way he hadn't been in years. The conversation flowed naturally, intellectual and stimulating, reminding him of late-night discussions in graduate school seminars or debates with Sarah over coffee on Sunday mornings. "Your insights on adaptive learning technologies are particularly interesting," Catherine said, making notes on a leather-bound notebook. "We're developing several platforms in that area." "The key is balancing automation with human guidance," Miles replied. "Students need personalized learning paths, but they also need the wisdom and nuance that only comes from human teachers." Catherine smiled. "Exactly our philosophy." The formal interview gradually transitioned into a tour of the offices, where Catherine introduced Miles to several department heads and senior editors. Everyone was polite and professional, though Miles couldn't help wondering if they saw him as he saw himself, an outsider, a high school teacher in a borrowed world. Finally, they returned to Catherine's office, where she gestured for Miles to take a seat once more. "I won't keep you in suspense," she said, settling across from him. "We'd like to offer you the position of Senior Educational Content Editor, effective as soon as you can start. The annual salary would be $115,000, with comprehensive benefits, retirement matching, and profit sharing." Miles tried to maintain his composure, but he must have failed because Catherine's expression softened. "That's significantly more than I'm making now," he admitted, his voice slightly unsteady. "It's the standard range for this position, given your qualifications," she replied matter-of-factly. "We also offer flexible working arrangements. While we prefer senior editors to be in office 3 days a week, the other 2 can be remote. And our workday officially ends at 5 p.m., we believe in work-life balance." Work-life balance. The concept seemed almost foreign to Miles after years of juggling teaching, grading, and his second job, all while trying to be present for Lily. "This is an incredibly generous offer," he said carefully. "But may I ask, why me? Boston must be full of qualified editors with actual publishing experience." Catherine set her pen down, considering him thoughtfully. "Experience comes in many forms, Miles. You've been in the trenches of education for years, seeing firsthand what works and what doesn't. You understand both the teacher's perspective and the student's needs. That's invaluable insight." She paused, then added more softly, "And frankly, your character impressed me. Not just in how you handled the situation in the parking lot, but in how you've handled your life these past 4 years. Raising a child alone while maintaining your career and your dignity, that demonstrates strength and integrity. Those are qualities I want in my team." Miles felt a lump forming in his throat. "I appreciate that. Truly." "There's one more thing," Catherine said, reaching for a folder on her desk. "As I mentioned, I did some research on you. In doing so, I came across several short stories you submitted to our literary division over the years." Miles felt heat rising in his cheeks. Those submissions represented a dream he'd all but abandoned after Sarah's death, when survival had taken precedence over creativity. "They were quite good," Catherine continued. "Particularly this one." She slid a manuscript across the desk, the weight of absence, a story Miles had written during the first year after losing Sarah, pouring his grief onto the page in the only way he knew how. Our fiction editor agrees. We'd like to publish it in our quarterly literary review, with your permission. It's a small thing, but perhaps it could be the beginning of that novel you've always wanted to write. Miles stared at the manuscript, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Catherine had done more than offer him a job. She'd seen him, really seen him, in a way few people had since Sarah died. She'd recognized not just his struggles and responsibilities, but his dreams as well. I don't know what to say, he managed finally. Say yes, Catherine replied simply. To all of it. The transition wasn't seamless. Nothing in life ever is. Miles needed to give notice at both his teaching position and the hardware store. He had to adjust to a new commute, new colleagues, new responsibilities. Lily had to adjust to a new after-school routine and the strange reality of having her father home for dinner every night, but 6 months later, as Miles unlocked the door to their new apartment, a sunny 3-bedroom with a small balcony where Lily had planted flowers, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. Dad! Look what I got on my science test. Lily came barreling toward him, waving a paper with a large A+ circled in red at the top. That's amazing, Lily Bug. He scooped her up, twirling her around as she giggled. I knew all that hard work would pay off. Mrs. Rodriguez made empanadas to celebrate, Lily informed him as he set her down. Their neighbor had become a fixture in their lives, a surrogate grandmother who insisted on cooking for them at least once a week despite their improved circumstances. Perfect timing, I'm starving. Miles hung up his coat, noticing a new drawing taped to the refrigerator, a colorful scene depicting 3 figures, a tall man with brown hair, a small girl with blonde curls, and a woman with a halo and wings hovering above them. His heart squeezed painfully. New artwork? Lily nodded, suddenly solemn. It's for Mom's birthday next week. Do you think she can see it from heaven? Miles knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her small shoulders. I know she can. And I know she's incredibly proud of you. Later that evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Miles sat at his desk, staring at the blinking cursor on his laptop screen. Chapter 12 of his novel in progress waited for him. Characters paused mid-conversation while he found the words to move their story forward. His phone buzzed with a text from Catherine, editorial meeting pushed to 11 tomorrow. Take your time with school drop-off. Miles smiled, typing a quick thanks. Over the months, their professional relationship had evolved into friendship, with Catherine becoming an unexpected mentor in both his publishing career and his writing. She'd kept her promise about work-life balance, ensuring Miles never missed a school event or doctor's appointment for Lily. He turned back to his novel, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The story followed a widower finding his way back to life through unexpected connections and rediscovered purpose. Not autobiography, exactly, but certainly informed by his experiences. His gaze drifted to the framed photo on his desk, Sarah holding newborn Lily, her smile radiant with joy and exhaustion. Beside it stood a newer frame containing the cover page of The Weight of Absence as it had appeared in the literary review, his first published fiction. I'm trying, Sarah, he whispered to the empty room. I'm finding our way forward. As if in answer, his phone lit up with a notification, a reminder for Lily's soccer game tomorrow afternoon. Miles had volunteered as assistant coach, something he never could have managed with his previous schedule. He set the phone down, returned his hands to the keyboard, and began to type. The words came more easily now, flowing from some deep reservoir within him that had been slowly replenishing these past months. His characters moved forward, stumbling sometimes but always continuing, just as he and Lily did every day. 1 year to the day after the tire-changing incident, Miles received a package at his office. Inside was a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird, his favorite novel, one he'd mentioned to Catherine during a literary discussion months earlier. The inscription read simply, "Sometimes small acts of kindness change everything." Thank you for reminding me of that. K. Miles ran his fingers over the embossed cover, thinking about the strange, unpredictable turns life could take. How a flat tire in a grocery store parking lot had altered the trajectory of his and Lily's lives. How humiliation had transformed into opportunity. How the worst day could become the prelude to something better. That evening, as he and Lily walked to their favorite ice cream shop, a Friday tradition they'd established, she slipped her hand into his, looking up with those eyes so like her mother's. "Are you happy, Dad?" she asked with the directness only children possess. Miles considered the question seriously, as he did all of Lily's questions. The past 5 years had brought more pain than he'd thought survivable. There were still nights he reached across the bed for Sarah before remembering. Still mornings he had to force himself to get up and face the day. Still moments when witnessing Lily's milestones without her mother felt like a physical ache. But there was also this, his daughter's hand in his, the novel taking shape chapter by chapter, work that engaged his mind, and a life that, while different from what he'd planned, held its own unexpected joys. Yes, he answered honestly. Not every minute of every day. But overall? Yes, I'm happy. Are you? Lily nodded decisively. I miss Mom. But we're doing okay, aren't we? We're doing better than okay, Miles assured her, squeezing her hand gently. We're doing just fine. As they continued down the sidewalk, Miles thought about all the unseen connections that bind human lives together. How one person's choice to stop and help, or not, creates ripples that extend far beyond that moment. How kindness, even when met with mockery, is never truly wasted. And how sometimes, the phone call that changes everything comes when you least expect it, opening doors you never knew existed. If you've stayed with me until the end of this story, I want to thank you. In a world that often seems divided and cynical, it's worth remembering that small acts of decency matter. That being mocked for doing the right thing doesn't make it the wrong thing. And that the connections we forge through kindness, even with strangers in parking lots, can transform our lives in ways we never imagined. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And the next time you see someone struggling with a flat tire, or any of life's unexpected challenges, remember Miles and Lily Harper, and consider stopping to help. You never know what might happen 24 hours later.